my name's David Dimbleby, and I'm recording this at my home in Sussex in England, and it's a story that I wrote for my grandchildren to cheer them up when they realized they were going to have to stay at home for several weeks because of coronavirus. The story is called The Slaying of the Corona Dragon, and it was sent to them actually as a colouring book, which I wish you could see, but obviously you can't, and they've filled in all the scenes. It's a story that I was asked to tell by the Hands Up Foundation, which supports vulnerable communities in Syria who day after day and year after year are suffering in ways which it's difficult for us to imagine. If you like the story, would you consider making a donation to them? They'd be very grateful. I'll give their address at the end. So if you're sitting comfortably, as the old saying goes, I'll begin. I want you to think forward 50 years from now to New Year's Day 2070. And on this day, my 7 grandchildren have gathered together, as they do every year, with their families for a traditional New Year party and the telling of the traditional New Year story, the story of what happened in the spring of 2020, 50 years ago, when a great dragon came from far away and threatened to destroy them all. Its name was Corona Dragon. Corona Dragon had started life in the Far East, and then he ran wild all over Asia and Europe, slaying everyone he could find, especially old people. And to hide from him, everyone locked themselves in their houses and just hoped he'd go away. The shops were closed, the streets were empty. No one knew what to do. But then we, that's my grandchildren, we came up with this idea. We knew that Corona Dragon liked old people best. And the oldest person that we knew was our grandfather, David, or Dee, as we call him. He happened to live near the sea at a place where the cliffs were the highest in England. Why don't we tempt him down to Dee's house, we said, and then lead him to the edge of the great cliffs? Well, we each had a part to play in what happened next. Dory, who was the youngest of us, was the first. Now, she lived in London and she was known to be completely fearless. So she was sent out to find the dragon. London was deserted. No one on the streets, everything shut up, all quiet. But nevertheless, after hours and hours of searching, she finally found the dragon lurking in a great square, hoping to spot some old people. She approached the dragon nervously. I know a very old person, she said, just the kind that you like. And skipping ahead of the dragon, she led him all the way from London down to her grandfather's house in Sussex. Her grandfather was in his garden, quietly smoking a cigar. Oh dear, we thought, we must quickly distract the dragon, or he'll have him for his tea. So George was next. Now, George was known as a quiet and thoughtful boy. So we thought he might be able to persuade the dragon to leave Grandpa and come and see the views from the cliffs instead. It's very beautiful, George said. You shouldn't miss it. But all his powers of persuasion were in vain. The dragon said, why don't you just lead me to this old man that you've promised me? So next, it was Johnny's turn. Johnny was George's younger brother, and he was famously fierce. Armed with a dagger, he approached the dragon and said, I'm a famous fighter. If you don't do as I say, I will stab you to death. But the dragon took one look at him and laughed and turned away. Well, it was Amy and Lila's turn next. They were 2 sisters. They were clever, dancers and actors. And to distract the dragon, they started performing in a corner of the garden, singing and swirling about and doing acrobatics, anything they could think of to distract the dragon. The dragon was curious. Maybe he was going to follow them at last, and they could lead him to the edge of the steep cliffs. But no, he watched for a bit, and then he got bored and rambled off across the lawn, searching for the old man. Things were getting desperate. There were only 2 of the old man's grandchildren left to lure the dragon to the cliff edge. They were called Moz and Olwyn. Moz took up the story. Now we, said Moz, both played the violin. And we could play it softly and sweetly, or squeakily and scratchy. So this is what we did. We came up beside the dragon and began playing our sweetest tunes. And believe it or not, the dragon, who obviously had a taste for music, followed us away from our grandfather, out of the garden, up the steep downs, and across the hills until we came to the cliffs looking down on the sea below. We played our tunes right to the edge of the cliffs, and the dragon followed us, listening to our music and looking out to sea. Before he could move away, we slipped behind him and then began playing a great cacophony of hideous, loud, squeaking, out-of-tune noises on our violins. If you've ever heard a violin played badly, you'll know how it sounded. And then, to add to the frightful din, the rest of us, Dory and Amy, Lila and George and Johnny, came out of the bushes, armed with saucepans and spoons, and began banging them loudly and out of tune. And the noise was so horrible, the dragon could bear it no longer, and to escape, he jumped off the cliff and tumbled head over heels until he landed on the rocks below. We looked over and saw him lying still, his eyes closed. He was dead. As the news spread through Britain and then right through the world that the Corona dragon was dead, we were the heroes of the hour. We went on morning television. We even met Piers Morgan. But our grandfather Didi said, "You took a bit of a risk, didn't you, using me to trap the dragon? He could easily have killed me." But he didn't, we said, so stop complaining. And that's the true story of what happened 50 years ago, they said, to their children and their grandchildren, who've been listening patiently, as they did every year. Only some of them had fallen asleep because they'd heard the story so often, which wasn't very nice of them, was it? Well, that's the end. And if you like the story, would you think of making a donation to Hands Up Foundation to support the Syrian families who are suffering so much? It would be really good. Their address is handsupfoundation.org, and you then /appeals, and then another /stories. I'll just say that once again. If you like the story, a donation to the Hands Up Foundation to support Syrian families, handsupfoundation.org /appeals /stories. Thank you very much.